I realized that something that's missing within LinkedIn connections is people don't necessarily know how to connect with each other. The power of social media, even YouTube content, as maybe the audience is watching today, is that people get to know how you think. The browser that intimately knows you. And
Ooh.
there's some comments in there like, I don't want my browser to know me, right?
You're listening to the Transformed with Data podcast with Graeme Crawford, CEO of Crawford Macmillan. Graeme is here to share something he's genuinely passionate about. He's going to show you how data can completely change the outcome for both people and businesses. In each episode, he sits down with real people who've done incredible things with data. But don't worry, these aren't your typical dry case studies. Graeme and his guests bring you stories about leaders and innovators who saw something in their data that sparked a brand new reality. These are changes that tore through entire industries, upended company cultures, and sometimes even changed lives. So whether you're a data enthusiast or just curious about how to find the truth in your data, join Graeme as he discovers how data becomes more than just numbers. It becomes the spark that ignites real, meaningful change. Let's get started. Thanks for listening.
Most marketers are optimizing for the wrong thing. Open rates, click-through rates, impressions. We've built a system that rewards metrics over meaning. But what if the numbers we brag about are actively eroding the trust that we're actually trying to build? Lauren Gibson thinks there's a better way. As the founder of Letter Launched and the strategist behind the wildly popular Connections newsletter, Lauren has helped generate over 41,000 leads by scaling real relationship moments. She's part data queen, part relationship hacker, and her work flips the script on what data-driven marketing should actually look like. In this episode, we're going to dig into how to scale intimacy without losing the intimacy, why AI is better as a wingman than the replacement, and why your metrics aren't telling you, but should. So let's dive in. Here's Lauren. Lauren, thanks so much for coming on.
Great to be here, Graeme.
We were just talking about before about when we first met, and it was actually through one of your connections initiative where you were connecting different people involved in different industries. And I remember what a great conversation that was right back at the beginning of us getting to know each other.
Yes, we were in a similar community, and I was interested in building a community online. And I realized that something that's missing within LinkedIn connections is people don't necessarily know how to connect with each other. Like, duh, it's easy to connect with people. But I realized after being told that I'm very good at connecting with people that there are a few frameworks and tactics that I use that I wanted to instill in others. Because when you're networking, you're not just talking about yourself and you're not just asking the other person questions. You are having a back and forth conversation. So there are some aspects of networking that we have lost, just as we've lost in the grand scheme of education, where we don't study as certain aspects of life. I don't know about you, but I never studied home economics, for example. We don't study these things.
I'm still bad at it.
You're right. Yeah, how to cook, how to, I don't know, wash some clothes. So I do believe that there are some things that have been educated out, and we only can acquire this knowledge through social skills and connecting with people who do have this knowledge, or reading self-help, as they may call it, books. But I wanted to instill some of this knowledge and these tactics and frameworks inside a group collective. So I'm so glad that you got to join.
Actually, he caught me in a period where I'd done a lot of self-reflection and building of self-awareness and self-improvement, and done all the reading and listened to all the podcasts. So it was such a refreshing change for me to be able to have real kind of honest conversations with other human beings that were authentic and that were vulnerable. And it sounds, like a normal thing, but I think more and more there is a premium on this type of interaction, especially online and especially on LinkedIn, that's full of AI-generated content, AI-generated comments, DM inbox. I'm sure yours is as full as mine is of we'll get you 800 leads in 3 seconds for $1 each and all of that stuff. So actually authenticity and real human connection is even more of a premium, I think, than it used to be. And you supply that for a lot of people.
Right. So I am seeing certain data that's actually being created at this stage that we have not had data for before. So for example, McKinsey actually did an analysis in 2024, so just last year, where they found that only 22% of brands measure trust at a board level, Yet those that do actually achieve 3 times stronger profits than engagement-focused competitors. So this is one point of analysis that I have started to lean into, and it's funny that that research came out around the time that I launched my Connections newsletter and the online networking events, because I am seeing this shift, especially in the age of AI, where outcome-driven results are not everything that we need anymore, and it's not what differentiates a person. Because I think you and I both know at this stage, I don't have to know how to maybe produce a podcast, but I can do a ChatGPT 4.5 research analysis plus a Claude Opus 4, combine them using Gemini Pro's giant context window, and I have a playbook. Whether I'm actually going to do it, that is maybe where I would hire someone. But the point is that the outcome of maybe producing a playbook or just creating one LinkedIn post, that is becoming so much easier. And so where people come into this is when you can have almost anyone in the world produce any piece of outcome that you want that is like lower effort because
Yeah.
of AI. That is when you choose the person that you most vibe with. I mean, we're seeing this term vibe marketing, vibe coding pop up because I think we are now operating in this very elusive space of vibes. And what this means, I believe, is that we are trusting each other on a more human level, where we are making connections and or wanting to do deals and business with people that we have more connections with. And I do believe, I will say that this has always been the basis of business. Great business self-help writers, any research that you may look into for like the Rockefellers, for example, you see that they follow these structures. So I'm a big fan of Andrew Carnegie, and
Hmm.
that was one of his books was one of the first ones my dad really made me read, like How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Yeah, the classic.
Definitely, definitely, and I think that is becoming even more important now.
Yeah, people are vibe connecting almost, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe they always have been. I want to go back to where you started that, and you talked about brands that are measuring trust. It's not something I've ever measured. So how would you go about measuring trust? Are we surveying people and saying like, how much do you trust this brand, and asking directly, or are there other ways or metrics that you might look at measuring trust of those brands that are doing it? Do you know how they're going about it?
So it can be difficult because there are going to be a lot more data points that may not necessarily exist within a typical CRM, right? But I think with the advent of the proliferation of AI and maybe the speed of quantum computing, we can find more data points that exist within this. So a couple points that I may point to for off the top of my head for like what would make someone trust someone is analyzing the like positive or negative LinkedIn posts or Twitter posts that exist. What is the positive and the negative analyses? These sorts of analytics sometimes exist within company surveys. But the
Yeah.
reason why I mention AI and quantum computing is because, like, to analyze the entire internet takes a lot more information and context
Of
window.
course. Yeah.
So I think that is becoming more possible to analyze this information, such as how long is someone on a company's video. So videos are very popular today. So what is the average percentage of time that someone is watching Netflix's, for example, videos versus another video streaming service? And so that would be related to the social media side of how they're connecting with their audience. But LinkedIn, they may have a positive, negative review analysis of like what people are saying for Amazon Prime versus Netflix. So I think that these data points are being created right now, and there's definitely a lot of results, especially even within the I will say the generational space. So I'm a baby millennial, by the way. So I like I apparently go back and forth.
Yeah, I'm not going to ask a lady her age, but I think the top end of Gen Z is what, early mid 20s now, I guess.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I think like 27, 28, 29. Apparently I'm like the last year. But like Gen Z cares a lot about the trust of the brand whereas they like to joke, for example, with millennials as I am, that we pretended to care and then we conformed. Gen Z actually seems to care and is voting with their money, so to say.
I actually was looking at a fascinating piece of research this morning from Pew Research and it almost seemed counterintuitive at first, but Gen Z and Gen Alpha, including them in the mix as well, because some Gen Alpha are aging into the workforce. I think in the next few years, are simultaneously the most knowledgeable about cybersecurity
Mm.
and the most willing to give their data away. But it's that combination, right? That the willingness to give the data away is in an expectation that personalization and value will come back in the other direction. And as soon as that stops, then you're not getting my data anymore. So I think Gen Z in general is much sharper on setting up the data sharing settings on an application by application basis, or managing, automatic updates on apps on their phones, and understanding all the things and whatever that goes along with it is a truly interesting one.
Yeah, there is this new browser, Dia. Have you heard of it?
No,
Dia.
I'm two generations away from
Oh,
from knowing
okay.
about cybersecurity, I guess. So like,
Maybe you've heard of
tell me about Dia.
yeah, maybe you've heard of Arc browser.
Arc, I've heard about, yeah.
Yes. So the creators of Arc, called the browser company, they recently released this browser called Dia. Only Arc users can actually access it right now. But the branding of this is the browser that intimately knows you. And
Ooh,
there's some comments in there like, I don't want my browser to know me. Right. Um,
yeah. I'm
yeah.
looking it up now.
And I prefer Arc browser personally, but I actually recently downloaded Perplexity Comet, which is almost very similar to Dia, but it actually can perform tasks for you because it's a more agentic model.
Got it.
I'm really interested to see like where this information goes, but I think the overall analysis of where people are voting their their downloads and their money, like I don't think people care as much about data privacy as they like maybe want to say, because
Yeah,
you're being spied on
but
all the time.
But going back to where we started, trust is critical, right? As soon as the trust is gone, then people do start caring a lot more about data privacy. And you spoke about what a complex thing to measure trust is, and that's true of all the best metrics, right? It's often and I see this in clients that I work with. Often the best metric for measuring the progress of a business in alignment with whatever that business's strategy is not the easiest to measure. It's difficult. Maybe it's a compound metric. Maybe you need to take a couple of different things in consideration, the same as you do with trust. But the trap that people fall into, including presumably the 2/3 of businesses that choose not to measure trust because it's difficult, is they use something else as a measure. And people always tend towards like, what's the easiest thing, right? And that's when you end up back in views, right? Views and click through rate. And I always I'm never afraid to use the self-deprecating example when I spent a small chunk of money on LinkedIn ads. I got a great CTR. I got nearly 4% CTR. So like kudos. I was like, wow, what great marketing copy! Like 300 visitors to my website.
Nice.
Not one of them filled a contact form in.
Right.
So it's all for nothing.
All views.
All for
And
nothing.
you're still
So
paying for it.
yeah, yeah, you don't get a refund either. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's funny.
because you just
I
got the clicks.
Yeah, absolutely not. Yeah, that is a funny one. So out of the connections and the trust, as a business builder, yourself and a connector yourself, like what's the coolest story you've got about trust, either with a brand or an individual? Like, have you had an unlikely partnership or worked with an unlikely piece of software as a result of trust?
Mm. Um, my business today is mostly built on referrals and trust. I think especially when if we look at the age that we're in this age of AI, What is going to differentiate people is whether they trust you. Because in this age where, as I was mentioning, AI can copy pretty much any kind of output. And the only thing that will be uncopyable in this new age, Gary Vee actually says this, is you. You are licensed to yourself. So if anyone tries to copy your likeness or yourself, you can obviously try to sue them. So um, I so back to your question though, I see a lot of like things come from referrals, and I'm actually been working on cold outreach. And what has worked really well for me has actually been when I am recording a Loom video. And so I'm trying to build a system that is like more like trust at scale, so that I can maybe even create an AI avatar to follow this sort of script, but personalized to the company. Um, because there is data really that shows that like scaling this personalization actually reduces costs in the end, because if things are hyper personalized, people really feel like you're speaking to them. So they're more likely to buy. And so that's why some of these, gurus say niche down, discover, the pain points, know the whole life story of your person's niche, because every single point related to your ideal customer, um when we find and when we connect with information, like for example with something like astrology. So astrology is not something that's really like in matter of fact science based, but you will find people will come to astrology and they'll pick out little points that match them and say, "Yep, I'm a Taurus rising," right?
Are you? What's your sign,
Oh,
Lauren?
I'm an Aquarius.
Oh, me too. Wow.
Oh, yeah, nice. That's like the
Wow.
sign of the sciences or whatever.
Oh, there you go. Well, we shouldn't. Yeah, I'm not going to give away our PII, but maybe
That's
we've got a
funny.
virtual joint birthday party in the future. Who
I
knows?
know, right? That's funny. But yeah, you know,
That must be why we get on so well, Lauren.
yeah,
Must
right.
be.
See, we made
There's no
that
other,
connection.
there's no other explanation.
That's what we humans do. Like we are natural connection machines. And so I lean into that in my brand within the newsletter Connections, which isn't just about connecting people, which is the networking event. It's also about connecting ideas and connecting ideas to people. Because when we can make these connections, then we can likely even increase our like revenue, if that is a metric that is preferred by some people. And we can increase our partnerships, um, or maybe even our free time. Let's say even our free time, and I mention that because if we know the right people who we can hire, let's say, then we can maybe free up our time so that we don't have to be worried about who we're hiring. So I think trust can touch a lot of different points of a business, and I think that's really valuable.
Yeah, I'd like to increase all of those things for sure. Absolutely. And when you're trying to get people to join connections or the newsletter service that you're doing, like what are some of the best ways? You spoke about Loom videos, by the way, and I think I read somewhere you get 4x open rate if
Mm,
you record a quick, not even a Loom, but if you like, almost if you're rather than send 100 cold DMs on LinkedIn, actually, if you just send 10, where you like just hold your phone up to your face, like you could be walking to the park or walking the dog or whatever it might be, or walking from the garage to the shopping mall, even like because it's authentic and because it's real and because it's personalized. Yeah, the open rate can be up to 6x just because people feel this message is for me. And back to the point you were making about niche, 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 and niche again, like you get to the point where you're trying to become a category of one. Like, there's no other business that can offer a service this targeted for my needs. Some interesting ways to replicate that at scale, though. I mean, I've seen companies that claim to be I don't know, the CRM for lawyers, right? And they go around selling it directly to lawyers. But little do those lawyers know that there's a sister landing page for people with
Yes,
window cleaning businesses, and a sister landing page for people with garden lawn care businesses,
the
or
copy is
whatever
just
else.
tweaked a
But
little.
it's something that, back to the wonderful world of AI, is a lot easier, to do now. It's but the basing everything in actions, I think, is key, right? Ideas always used to be cheap compared to execution, but that's, again, in the post AI world, that's even more like ideas are a ten a penny. Like, they're everywhere, but who's actually going to take an idea and execute on it? And that action is how I think you build trust. Like, people have seen you and see hard evidence that you've been through the hurdles and done
You
something.
had this question earlier about how where have I seen trust impact my business? And I was just reminded that just last week, I had someone put some time on my letter launched strategy calendar, which means that they visited my website and then they booked time, which means they saw my service. And I got on the call, really surprised because I actually had sent them a proposal for something a little bit different a year ago to work with them. And they never followed up really with that. But I continue to keep the relationship intact by being cordial and following up with them in an indirect way by commenting on their LinkedIn posts. So, a year later, after I've now developed this newsletter strategy business, and it's also expanding into LinkedIn content as well. Stay tuned. Uh, this person came to me and said, I read one of your posts about newsletters, and actually, we're exploring that specific thing. And they already knew me. They were open to working with me a year ago, and it wasn't the right time, actually, so I'm grateful that that didn't work out because I really see a lot of value in newsletters, and we can get into that because I have some data about that too. But this is really a
Yeah, I'd
point
love to.
about how, connections and relationship building, it just doesn't go away, and so I love LinkedIn because it is a text-based platform, versus images like Instagram, or more like memes and like very quick slots like X or Twitter. Also, just a side note, I used to be very involved in Web3 and crypto. So I have an NFT as a profile picture on X, and I have a very different personality on there. So I just keep it to that. And then on my LinkedIn is really more my professional side. But I've always been known from close friends and even colleagues that I am a writer, and so I wanted to lean into that using LinkedIn because so if there is anyone listening to this and they're interested in creating some content on LinkedIn, or even maybe if they're trying to land clients or maybe even land a job, um, writing on LinkedIn has been very helpful to me because it is an open platform of it's just it's the top of the funnel, as they say. So, and with LinkedIn, because it's mostly text-based posts, some people are leaning into, of course, video, so that can work too.
CEOs, if you're still making big decisions based on outdated dashboard, conflicting numbers, and manual reports, then you're not leading with confidence. You're not alone. Most 5 million plus businesses have this exact struggle, and your tech stack and platforms feel like they're duct taped together. Worse, every week that goes by, you're still flying blind. And if AI is part of your roadmap, well, you can forget about it, because clean connected data is step one. So you're still in the starting box while others are running ahead of you. That's why we created the free 5-minute data maturity assessment. It's fast, it's free, and it shows you where your business stands and what's holding you back. You'll walk away with a clear score, a snapshot of your current systems, and insight into what it'll take to build a data infrastructure to support your ambition. It's the same approach I've used inside global firms like Capital One, IBM, and Accenture. and now it's adapted for fast-scaling businesses like yours. We've helped executive teams gain clarity, reduce friction, and make better decisions with the data they already have. No giant software overhaul, no disruption to your team, no data science degree required. Also, no magic wand apps that are too good to be true and sell a dream that is effectively only papering over the cracks of structural data issues. This is about giving CEOs real visibility and helping you lead with facts, not friction. So if you're ready to stop guessing and start leading with real data clarity, take our free assessment. It only takes 5 minutes. You'll get immediate insight on your current maturity and just what's possible next. Click below to get started. You've scaled your sales, your operations, your sales team. Now it's time to scale your data. I've led data transformations for some of the world's most complex companies. And now I help CEOs and leadership teams just like yours turn data into a real advantage. Let's get started. I mean, LinkedIn seems to be pushing that really
completely.
hard. Although the only videos I really see are the marketing people from LinkedIn saying, oh, videos, the new way to go on LinkedIn. I'm like, but there's no space for all our videos because all you're
Yeah,
showing me
I
is
only
yours.
see that or the people or the video people who are pushing like, "Hey, I'll help you do your videos," you know? Yeah. But,
Yes.
what I like about LinkedIn and the power of social media, even YouTube content as we're like as maybe the audience is watching today, is that people get to know how you think. And so how you think is going to be the angle that you provide for the outcome that the client wants to achieve. And so what that means is the outcome that I actually give, let's say I write one newsletter for a client, it's going to be based on the angle and the experience that I have as a human being who has traveled to 44 countries, who has an MBA.
Nice,
Yes.
44.
And so every piece of content will show my thought process there, and it will connect with people in a way that will be reminded of why they would want to not just create a newsletter, but create a newsletter with someone who has these angles or these aspects to them.
I mean, even just looking at your 44 countries, what's your favorite one, by the way? Apart, excluding your home
I
country, we won't
know.
count that one.
Well, I actually recently visited El Salvador, and I so
Ooh,
when I analyze a country, I analyze based on kind of the culture, but also the history. And Central South America has some interesting recent history, of course. El Salvador, for example, is the Bitcoin capital. So I got to visit Bitcoin Beach,
yes,
where
yes.
yes, you can pay for things in Bitcoin. And then I got to see this really newly developed country because the president, Nahib or something, he is investing a lot into the country. And 5 years ago, it was the murder capital of the world. So I
Wow.
think it's very interesting to go visit some of these countries during times of transformation.
It's and back to your point, right? Even just hearing how you talk about El Salvador and knowing that you travel and
Yeah,
vibe traveling, right?
totally.
I always love to get the vibes of a country. Like that gives a window into how you think, right? And as a potential newsletter or content partner, realizing that as part of her life outside of work, Lauren travels around different countries, seeking out different perspectives, looking for different angles on things, trying to understand different ways of doing things. Like that's a trust build, right? In terms of
Yeah,
a
I will
content
say
partner.
thank you for saying that, Graham, because one of my early clients said that is why they wanted to work with me because they saw that I had
Oh,
traveled to
I
so
love
many
that.
countries and they realized, oh, she's very open-minded. So, so I completely agree with you.
So let me ask you then, like, which Lauren went to El Salvador? Was it professional LinkedIn writing Lauren, or was it Web3 graffitiing
It's
at the
so funny.
weekends, NFT Lauren?
I've only done graffiti one time.
Oh wow, what a lucky guess
Yeah.
that was.
Uh, that was
Where
a
where
different
did you?
Lauren. That was
I
college
do,
Lauren when it was like
oh,
fun times.
cool. Is the graffiti still there? Do you know?
Yeah, in my head, maybe, but,
Okay, take the fifth.
yeah.
Let's move on. Yeah.
I think that, when we do travel, this is a bit separate than this whole conversation, but perhaps related because when we do travel, we do open our minds to different ways of living and being, and so, And so I do think that we bring all of our baggage, relationships, our
Mm,
work, life, thoughts that we're bringing that to the travel. So when we come out of travel, we usually those aspects that we were working on have been developed in a way because we have been exposed to a new environment, which is creating more connections in our brain that um, I think are really minuscule and hard to pinpoint. But I think in the coming years with Neuralink and some of these aspects of like technological advancements with the human brain, we'll be able to see the impact of something like travel. But at this stage, of course, I'm not going to travel and wearing some crazy crazy Neuralink and seeing how the connections change in my brain.
I'm
I
here for
know.
it though when it
That's
happens.
fun.
I really am. And you say it's not necessarily connected. I think it absolutely is. Like it's all about for me data points. I can turn anything into a data conversation, But I moved to this country 10 and
Yeah.
a half years ago now, assuming it was going to be pretty similar to the UK where I'd lived. And it caught me out time and time again, to the point that I even wrote a book about it, or is it
Really?
somewhere around here? And yeah, oh, here we are. Look.
Oh, I love that.
The Red, White, and Blueprints, A Guide to the USA for UK Immigrants, available on Amazon.
I love
I
that name.
I know. It's a good one. An early version of GPT may have helped me come up with the
Nice.
name. But yeah, I was learning to write, right? So I knew I was planning on starting a company at some point in my future, and one of the skills that I didn't have in corporate America that I needed to develop was being able to write online effectively in a way that builds trust and connection. Exactly what you do, right? It's a critical skill and a critical thing more and more for businesses. And I would write a short essay every day, and 6 months later, I was like, "Oh, I have 100,000 words here. Maybe I should, maybe I should do something with this." And that turned into that.
What's
But
something that you wrote in there? Like, what's a lesson you learned?
so many that I got caught out on. The biggest one that always sticks with me is the sense of humor, the difference in sense of humor. And I was transplanted working at the same company, right? So you expect the culture to be the same. No, totally not. And like one of the biggest differences between British and American humor is self-deprecation. And there's a guy called Stephen Fry who Americans know from Harry Potter, who said this so beautifully that if you look through all of the great British comedy, like the main protagonist is a bumbling fool who's aspiring above their station, but knows deep down that they're not good enough, and that they will never get there, and that's like at the core of British humor. And there's a whole host of British shows that you wouldn't know that I could name where that's true. Conversely, if you look at American shows, and you use Seinfeld as an example of this, and in fact, The Office is a great
Mm,
example of this
the
because you've
2
got
different.
two parallel universes running here. And Michael Scott's not a great boss, but he really thinks that he is. Whereas if you look at Ricky Gervais's character across in The Office, he is torn apart from the inside because he wants to believe he's a good boss, but deep down he knows that he isn't. Deep down he knows he's shit. And so the result of that is, British humor is typically much more self-deprecating than American humor. It's not the done thing to self-deprecate. So I would come into team meetings and I'd say something like self-deprecating. People would be like, sarcasm is another thing that doesn't translate. So I'd say something that's both sarcastic and self-deprecating, and people would not know what to do with it.
I know.
Um, so, I prescribe in there for UK immigrants to watch a bunch of Seinfeld episodes. I recommend a few that get
It's
referenced all the
required. You
time.
know
To watch a bunch
yeah.
of SNL, to Office Space was the other one for anyone trying to watch, just to educate yourself about how different it is. But you collect data points, and the critical thing, and this is true for both travel as well as moving in different. Obviously, moving countries is a larger dose of the same thing, but it shakes you out of there's only
Mhm.
one way to do this thing, right? Even you go to a country and the pedestrian crossings on the road are different, right? And it shakes you out of this belief that there's only one right way to do something, and that there's only one way to achieve the best outcome in something. And I think that's such a valuable business skill and such a valuable connection skill as well, because you approach things with much more of an open mind, right, and a willingness to learn and to adjust your
Mhm.
river of thinking,
And create
so
create
to
more
speak.
connections in your brain, which can actually help you live longer.
Oh, tell me about that. That's a data
Oh,
point that I'm all
nice.
in for. Look, add some years onto my life, please. Go ahead. Like, how tell me the secret.
I think there's a study that I didn't bring to this conversation, but
That's fine. We've established
oh,
trust. I'm going to
perfect.
believe you
Yes, right.
whether you could cite it or not. Yeah, there you
But
go.
new connections in your brain, such as learning a language when you're older, that's a data point that's actually been studied, is learning languages while you're older helps keep your brain more active. And so then when your brain is more active, maybe you yourself are more active, reading, digesting more information, and just enjoying life more. Because maybe sad to say, but, the people who may end up being older and, they are tired of life,
Yeah,
they end up passing and I believe some correlation of this is because there is no new data points that they want to absorb in their life. Maybe that's controversial to say.
I think I could have a couple of examples. One, you often hear of people dying of a broken heart, so to speak, right? So when a life partner that they've been with for many decades passes away, and suddenly it's like, okay, well, what's left? And even more recently, like the epic final concert that Ozzy Osbourne put on over in the UK, and it stirred a lot of things in me, that, and including like a wish of, like, what if you were to pick a way to go, like celebrating the pinnacle of all your achievements, having spent a lifetime doing something that you love doing, in your hometown, in front of all your fans. Like, one, isn't what a great way to spend a career and celebrate a career, but two, there was something inside me that was like, well, maybe, I know he was ill and he was suffering. Maybe it was like, okay, well, now this concert is done, this epic concert is in the books.
There's nothing
There's
left.
nothing
Yeah.
left to do now. It is a fascinating one, and I think the the brain body connection, or the link between mental health and physical health, is always one that has fascinated me, because as humans, like, we
Mm.
accept, right? We will readily accept, and I think there's numerous studies around this as well. I don't know. People can go and watch Huberman
That's what I was thinking.
if they want
I
more,
was really into him a couple
but
years ago.
um, the we accept that if you're stressed out, then you get negative physical symptoms, right? So if your mental health is bad, then your physical health will be bad. Shouldn't it then logically follow that the reverse is true? And we're getting more to woo woo Dr. Joe Dispenza land
I
here,
like
which
to.
I like to flirt with sometimes. Um, as a logical data point, wouldn't it make sense that if you have really positive mental health, that could have positive and even curative impact on your physical body? Wouldn't that it's just the opposite of something that we accept so readily, but yeah, it seems a harder leap to aspire to.
That does seem like a harder leap, but I will say that I firsthand experienced that. This is just a personal note, but I really did
Go
suffer
ahead.
from 10 years of depression, due to, is what I say, my parents' divorce, where I'm an only
Hmm.
child. And I don't remember actually before my parents' divorce. So,
And what age were you when it
13.
happened?
So, going through puberty. So,
As someone with a 13-year-old, I know what a difficult in my house right now, I know what a difficult emotional time that is.
I'm sorry to hear that.
No, in isolation, right? For, as a 13-year-old, so then to have this on top, I can
Yeah,
only imagine.
as a 13-year-old, you don't know like what comes like if this is the reason or this is the reason, or maybe you're creating it because you're just upset. I think eventually that's the story that I told myself, that you know, I cannot change, and this is just a core lesson that I've learned in my life, is that I cannot change like people. This is also probably why I care a lot about connections and relationships, because I had a lot of emotional trauma and Yeah, and I've written a lot in my journals just about like my feelings towards relationships and me as someone who I consider myself a logical and a rational human being, even especially as a woman. I try to make logical connections about why things happen, and some things just aren't logical. And we need to bring in ethos, not just logos in this space. So the end result of this is that I had never heard of some of these like woo woo things like kind of changing your brain until I actually got to the lowest stage of my life where I finally stopped being depressed and I actually started being angry. So I've now looked into things like Maslow's hierarchy of needs and how
Hmm.
people get out of depression and actually what is so the opposite of happiness is not like anger. The opposite of happiness is just indifference, which is depression, right?
Yeah.
So how do we get closer to happiness? We actually have to get closer to like passion and joy. Anger is a form of that because you're feeling something. So I got fed up with really I got fed up with life and it's because I lived in North Africa. It just pulled something out of me. I had never experienced as overt sexism as I experienced living in and teaching for a year in Tunisia and Egypt, and I'm grateful for it because it helped me like really know who I am. And so when I came back to the United States, I was grateful to be able to just walk on the street for with people not catcalling me. Um, and and just wearing a t-shirt and shorts, right? So I I realized that there was a lot of gratitude to be had to live in the United States, and I had started to learn some of these concepts just by effect of just meditating. And so I really leaned into that where it never worked for me before. I would always fall out of it. But I
Yeah.
learned some effects of meditating and visualizing the ideal that you would want. And that effect made like my mood rise so that I actually had the energy to go work out, which I had never done. I had lost 30 pounds like running and doing yoga, and I had never worked out. I had the identity of I don't want to work out. I want to eat cookies. So I changed my identity and I created this new path for me. So I think there is some correlation to your physical body and your mental health and vice versa, because my mental state of me saying that I can do this, I can run, I can run longer than 2 minutes. By me forcing myself to do those physical activities helped increase my endorphins and my dopamine so that it contributed to the mental health rise that I achieved.
Yeah, and then that rises in tandem with the physical. I deeply appreciate you sharing something so personal in the interest of the greater good, and I'm sure there are at least a couple people listening that will really benefit from that. And I should compliment you as well as for your vulnerability and authenticity for a self-proclaimed younger millennial slash elder Gen Z. Like the amount of wisdom and self-awareness and maturity you have is way beyond anything I had when I was at your stage of life. So I have a whole bunch of admiration for you for a lot of reasons.
Thank you, Graham. I appreciate, you having me on the pod and taking also a data approach to some of these topics because I want people to understand that connections and relationships, there are like tangible aspects to this. So I like being able to bring in some of these vulnerable mentions so that I can bring in some of the the logos, the logical aspects of the data points to help people see that there maybe are actual tactics and ways that we can improve our lives as human beings while also maybe, landing a deal and making more money.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, all things can exist in the same way. And just to not a similar situation. I'm not trying to
Sure.
suggest equivalence here by any means, but similar journey that I went through actually just recently. Like I'd always struggled with working out and getting to the gym and making myself go. And actually, it was never a problem of being able to do it. Actually, turned out when I addressed my mental health issues and sort of took a break from the world of
Mhm.
corporate, started building my own thing, worked on the self-awareness, did the meditation, listened to the podcasts, read some books the previous me would have said, oh, this is woo-woo and not interesting, and actually fixed my mental health. But actually the barrier for me to overcome was, and now I go to the gym 3 times a week and I love running and try and get all my times done and whatever else. And it's the transition for me was, and this is the simplest way of saying it, but I began to believe that I was worth it, or that I was worth the effort. And I think that was the threshold that
I
I
love
went
that. Thank you
across
so much for sharing,
um,
Graham.
on that journey. Yeah, connections, wonderful thing. Heal your
Yep.
brain, heal your
It's
body,
all connected.
heal everything. And if you want to connect, then Lauren is the person to do it for you. So we talked about letter launch. We talked about connections. Where can people, obviously, Lauren on LinkedIn is easy enough to find, but where can people go if they want to connect with your services and or your newsletter to read more and pull many of the more wonderful more threads that you've got to pull on these
Thank you,
things?
Graham. Yes, I'd love for people to connect with me on LinkedIn. Send a personalized DM. That's always great for connecting with people. Yeah,
With a
maybe
video
with the Loom video attached.
that's not made by
Right.
AI.
Yeah, I can tell, although they are getting pretty good. But, yes, please do that or even scroll down. I have a link to my newsletter, and you can subscribe to that there.
Absolutely, and I'll send the link out for folks as well. Lauren, whatever led our query and path together over the past couple of years, I'm thankful for it. And thankful for this conversation today. I greatly appreciate you coming on, and I'm sure we will continue to.
Yes, and grow until next time you, grow your podcast. I'm so excited to be one of the first. Thank you.
Absolutely. Take care.
Thanks for tuning in to Transformed with Data. If today's conversation gave you even one insight, one aha moment, or one new idea to take action on, do me a favor. Subscribe, leave a review, and share this with someone who's ready to level up. Until next time, keep asking the right questions, keep challenging the status quo, and keep transforming with data.